Hello. Oh goodness. Welcome to an episode of Motor City Metrics. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts. Thank you for watching. We're also on YouTube. What are we on? We're on YouTube, Twitter. We're on pretty much everything. I'm Mike Papchek along with Chris and Yoop. Rogelio is going to be joining us a little later tonight. We do also have a special guest to talk about the Guardians and how their season looks this year as well. But I mean, we should probably just hop right into things. Not the best cold open for me here, but we spent a lot of time last week on roster, the end of the bench for the offense. So thought we might start maybe on the pitching side, because in the last week there's been obviously the chase for the last rotation spot or two, really. And somebody who looks like he's setting himself apart, at least in spring right now, is Casey Mize. I think he hasn't allowed a run yet still, which again, it's still spring, but still pretty impressive to have 0 runs allowed. So yeah, I thought we'd start with Casey Mize. Why don't you start us off, Chris? What do you want to tell us about how Casey Mize has been doing?
Not even allowed a run. I think his last outing, which was his worst of spring, which involved 3 walks, was the first time he'd let anybody get to second base. And like you said, it's just spring, but these at this point there are 3 people vying for 2 roster spots. I guess 4, right? And it feels at this point that Mize has kind of secured one of those for sure. 4th or 5th, whatever, however you want to do it. He's just been really good. It's the best he's ever looked, in my mind. This harder splitter is a real game changer. The fastball plays off it really well, and then he's able to stay unpredictable with his various sliders, which I still don't think are great on their own, but it's kind of that whole thing coming together. The fastball and splitter are working really well. So, I mean, that's a super positive development, right? Like, this is a guy that some people, I think we were all a little bit concerned, right? Like, this is, he never really lived up to the billing, and if you can get a couple seasons of him as like a number 4, number 3 starter, that's great. But sort of the interesting thing now becomes, well, the battle for that 5th spot. There are 3 people basically vying for it, and I still think that Jackson Joe probably has the edge. We've been kind of assuming that he's going to make the rotation. Not all of us. I think Raj keeps saying that Montero he thinks is going to get in there, and Montero has been really good this spring too, outside of one really rough inning that maybe wasn't entirely his fault. He's also hasn't pitched every outing. Yeah, well, I think he's had a couple outings on the backfields basically just to stay on schedule, and that we don't get to see, and it doesn't count. So it's hard to go with that. And then Kenta Maeda leads all of spring. Every pitcher in strikeouts in the spring, so they've got some interesting choices. So I don't know. You have any thoughts on Mize and the general end of the rotation?
Yeah, I think the best part, and you kind of alluded to it. It's not the stats, right? He's allowed 0 runs, but even if he had allowed, say, 3 runs right now, I wouldn't care that much. It's more about how he's looked, And to me, it's always been, and I've talked about it ad nauseum. It's been a bit about the fastball. And you're right. That harder splitter is making that, I believe, at least in spring training, making that fastball play up. And to me, that's going to be so huge for him if that is the real deal and can continue into the season. Because I've always said, as I watched, even in the year he was pretty good, I always felt that at bats against Casey Mize were too damn comfortable for people. Even when he got people out, I can't imagine anybody came out of the batter's box shaking after facing Casey Mize, right? He was usually nibble away. Now he's got that fastball cooking, and he's getting some people to swing and miss, and he's inside a little bit, but it plays off that splitter, and it's exciting to see. It's not real yet until we get into April, but it's a nice sign.
Yeah, it's definitely felt like a positive development for sure. And then, I mean, the interesting thing, and this is not the first time I've said this, but Casey or Jackson Jobe went out there, and as Mike was saying, he gave up a whole lot of hard contact, including a couple home runs, and only got 3 swings and misses. He did get 3 strikeouts. You can get strikeouts by catching people looking too. That's fine, but we kind of associate swings and misses with more dominance And it's something that we've questioned for a while now, and it doesn't seem to be getting better. And in both of his last outings, he seems to run out of gas right in the fourth inning. And I don't know what, if we should make too much of it. Again, it's spring, but it led me to tweet about it, because I'm not worried, but I don't understand why it's happening. And if I could figure it out, I'd feel a lot more comfortable, because everything about Jackson Jobe says that he should be getting a lot of strikeouts.
Mm-hmm.
He's got plus velocity. The fastball shape is very good. It's not like, one of those old school, flat fastballs. It's got good ride on it. His cutter is good. His changeup is good. He's developed this new curve. He's got the sweeper. He's got all these different weapons. He throws a fair amount of strikes. He just doesn't get swings and misses. And I don't know if it's just him needing to learn how to pitch more, or if there's something behind the scenes that we can't figure out that's causing the issue. The only thing that's really kind of pedestrian on him is his extension. He doesn't get far down the mound when he lets go, and theoretically that could let hitters see the ball a little earlier. But even still, with his pure stuff, you would think he would get more swings and misses, even if he's throwing it from straight on the rubber. So I don't really know what to make of it.
Especially for, his height is he's like 6'2", right? I mean, if he was, obviously he's not Doug Fister, but if he was 6'4", I mean, was that going to, is that more of a domineering presence out there for swings and misses? Does that get the extension down the mound a little bit? Hard to say. And obviously he's not going to grow. So they got to work with what they got. And he's 22, right? And it would be interesting to see, if we could find some comps of guys 21, 22 years old and see where it goes. I mean, we know, and I'm not saying there are different types of pitcher in some respects, but, Verlander's strikeout rates early on weren't eye-popping, but eventually they did become that. Maybe Joe follows that route, and that's just a pure guess. I mean, who knows? But, it's worth watching, and I think maybe, does that give the Tigers one reason to keep him in Toledo for a month and see what he does? Who knows? But that also does the service time thing that we've talked about a bunch too.
Yeah. I mean, that's it was close. We said it was close last spring, and the ultimate decider for why Matt Manning went to Toledo was that he gave up a fair amount of home runs in spring training.
Mm-hmm.
Now there were other things behind the scenes I think that they were probably not happy with, and you could make an argument that Kenta Maeda, he's got a ton of strikeouts, but he's given up some home runs. You could say that's that's why you don't make the rotation. You could say Montero, he needs to work on stuff, and you could say Jobe needs to work on stuff. So I'll be fascinated to see what the decision is. I still think you just go with Jackson Jobe because of the pure talent, and you try to help him figure it out at the big league level. That's where you need to figure it out. You're not going to get any better pitching coaching than, the Toledo pitching coaches are great, but everybody, we rave about Federer and Lund and Nieves for a reason. So I just think, and we've talked about it doesn't click right away for everybody. Sometimes the strikeouts take a long time. You just need to learn how to set pitchers up and finish them off. I'd feel better about it if I said, okay, that this is just that's all he needs to do. It's just this one thing. And I don't have any answers. I'm hoping that the Tigers and Jobe do.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I do wonder if they will. I mean, I don't want to say it's an excuse to leave him in Toledo, but I also I'd like to think that they're actually going to keep the best five guys up at the same time. So again, it's just all about Casey Mize is taking it, and it'd be great if Jobe, he for his first two innings, I was at work today and people were saying like, "Oh, Jobe looks good." And, I'm looking at like the pitching data and the stats after two innings. He's got 0 runs and 2 strikeouts, and it's like when you really take a look at it, like this is what's happening with Jobe. Oh goodness, I am so sorry. But I don't know. I think that ultimately he will make the rotation. I know Roger's been preaching this service time thing for a while, and I don't think it would hurt him. But I do think that with all the potential that's there, I think the only way you're going to know where he's at right now is if you in my opinion, is if you start him in the rotation at the beginning of the year.
I agree with you. I think it's, I think what he needs to do is learn how to get big league hitters out. Yeah. Now, we've seen this a little bit. Basically, once he got to Double-A, the strikeouts kind of dropped a little bit. The swings and misses dropped a little bit. So I think there is just something inherently in the way his operation that hitters aren't necessarily fooled by him. At the same time, they rarely hit him hard in the minors. Now, these are the big leaguers, so they're going to crush mistakes. But if he can just avoid making those mistakes, he should be fine. I also wonder, I mean, you never know. And this is always like the go-to, like, is he tipping his pitches? I don't know. I've never been good at that. You would hope that the team would know if that's an issue. But, he gave up a home run on a changeup today. And I was like, oh, well, that's a bummer. But I don't know. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I as of right now, I still think he's in the rotation, but there's still 2 weeks of spring training left. And there are some other interesting things going on, some battles. And we've discussed the outfield a ton. But, Winsel Perez still isn't back. He was supposed to play like 2 days ago, and he's not back. And so now the outfield's looking really iffy. I mean, there's discussions of, Javi Baez played third today. There's discussions of him maybe seeing some time in the outfield. And the other kind of battle is there at the end of the bullpen, where I had kind of just been taking for granted that Andrew Chafin was going to get the spot. But he's looked awful in his 2 outings in the spring. And not just like the results, like he's throwing 88 and walking everybody. And you hope he can ramp it up relatively quickly. And they signed him to a minor league deal, so it's not a big deal if he doesn't. But suddenly you're looking at, okay, so and I've talked about Sean Gunther's a fine player, but he doesn't miss any bats. And so you wonder if that's part of the reason why they went out and got Bailey Horn again today. He's a guy that they had before. And they DFA'd him, and he was picked up on waivers, and then the Cardinals got rid of him, and so they made a deal to get him back. So they must really like him. I mean, he is a power-armed lefty, but and then the other aspect of that is today Brant Herter worked the final 2 innings of the game and looked pretty good. So you wonder if, okay, they're just giving themselves a lot of different options here for who could fill out that left-handed reliever role, who could be an outfielder. And again, it's spring. We might be making way too much of all this. In 2 weeks, everything might be fine.
Yeah, I think they have so many bullpen options that at any given time, I would hope that, they can stitch together a bullpen that can be competitive and just mix and match as the season goes on. Because as we've talked about before, even last year when they were going 34-11 or whatever it was, this was a no-name bullpen. These weren't super studs going out there and mowing people down. These were just workman-like guys getting the job done. So that's probably what they're going to have to expect from these guys again. I've said many times that may well have been Sean Gunther's greatest 6 weeks of his life. Mm-hmm. And by the way, that's cool. If on his baseball epitaph it reads, he had 6 weeks of excellent work for a playoff team in the stretch, that's better than probably 90% of playoff or minor league pitchers ever will get, right? So not bad. So, I think that Bailey Horn, I was interested to see that. He does throw hard, but you look at his minor league stats. He's never been all that successful. Do they think the coaching staff can get him into a good spot? We'll have to find out.
No. What do you think, Mike? What do you think about the bullpen, the outfield? You got any opinions on any of this stuff?
Well, I guess it kind of feels like I think of Kenta Maeda right away because it almost sucks that it just feels like he's going to end up taking a bullpen spot away from somebody else. Mm-hmm. And it feels like I think of Kenta Maeda and Javi Baez like kind of in the same spot right now. They have a bloated contract that is going to end up taking a spot away from someone else. And in the last couple of years, it just hasn't felt like it mattered as much. I think maybe with the expectations being maybe lower really than they have been. This year's is probably the highest expectations in years going into the season. So I think that ends up crunching the roster a little bit more than I wish we had to. But it doesn't look like I don't think there's a scenario where Kenta doesn't come up, in the bullpen on the roster. I know I've been pushing really hard, letting you know I just have a weird feeling that he's going to make the rotation still. And the fact that he's pitched, like you mentioned earlier, Chris, he has led the Tigers in innings pitched this spring. So I still think that there is something to be said that could happen. But either way, even if that does happen, it's the same thing with the pitching, the starting rotation spot, if that were to happen. So I hate that we may end up, what I think is going to end up happening is we may not love the dude, the surprise that doesn't make it. I don't know who that is right now. And I think it's going to end up being because Kenta Maeda has taken their spot.
Yeah. I've seen some people suggest that you just piggyback Job and Maeda, and at least at the beginning of the year, and that would be kind of that would be a real slingshot effect, right? You got the guy throwing 99, and then the other guy throwing touching 92 with a splitter. But I don't know. But Justin's here, so let's add Justin. Justin, how you doing? Justin Lada, our friend, longtime Guardians, since before they were the Guardians, writer, prospect writer. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. It's getting a little warmer in Cleveland. I got a fantasy draft this weekend, so I'm super pumped for that. We got spring breakout games, which I think is one of the best things Major League Baseball has done in a while. That's not saying much because they've got a lot of problems, even though I love this sport, but doesn't love us. But yeah, it's all good. Hope springs eternal. We're all hopeful, right? Except for the White Sox.
Exactly right.
Yes.
And the Rockies.
Oh, well, they've got some. Yeah, I guess both those teams have some interesting prospects. This is probably the highlight of their season right now, right? This spring breakout.
I don't even know if the spring breakout can be the highlight for the Rockies. Like, I love Chase Dollander. I love Zach Veen. Zach Veen hasn't been healthy. I will say the Rockies have had some drafts that I've liked the last couple of years, but that doesn't mean I think they're going to be able to develop those guys. Like, they've taken some of my favorite pitchers, Sean Sullivan from Wake Forest, but whether or not they actually develop them is a different story. So I don't even know if this is the highlight for them. I'd rather be a White Sox fan because at least their prospects are good right now. Like, and I believe like they'll at least fall backwards into some of those guys being productive players.
Yeah, let's.
It can't get worse for the White Sox, right? Right?
No, well, I mean, literally, probably can't get worse. Even though they may, they traded away
statistically, no.
And they may trade
statistically, no.
Robert. But yeah, they're gonna bring up, and I think they sent all of their prospects to the spring breakout. Like some of these other teams are not, like Jackson Jobe isn't there for the Tigers because he's trying to make the opening day roster. Cleveland plays tomorrow night.
Cleveland plays Friday against the Mariners. That's going to be a fun matchup because these are two really good farm systems. The Mariners are going to have Colt Emerson. Ty Pete was like a favorite of mine, even though I'm not sure how that's all going to pan out for him. But like Tyler Locklear, Harry Ford's in there. Like, it's going to be a fun group. Lazaro Montes.
Is Farmelo playing?
Johnny Farmelo, I don't think is playing. I don't think I saw him on the roster. I'm trying to remember who the pitchers were. I'm excited to see Colt Emerson because I think Colt Emerson is an Ohio guy, even if he is I think if he's Columbus or Cincinnati, he's from not Northeast Ohio, but pretty sure that the Mariners sniped him from the Guardians in the draft 2 years ago. So
I remember our buddy Brian Sikowski really loved Colt Emerson and wanted him, but he didn't think he was going to last the Tigers. I imagine Durangelo is going to be there for the Mariners. That'll be fun.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Durangelo St. and I think Ryan Sloan. I'm super pumped for Ryan Sloan. Ryan Sloan I knew he wasn't going to get to Cleveland's second pick last year. Obviously, they took Travis Bazzana, but he wasn't going to get to Cleveland. So I was hoping they could buy him or Slade Caldwell down to their second pick, and they couldn't. But it's going to be a fun game. I'm excited. Like I said, this is probably the best thing Major League Baseball has done in a while. And I know that's not saying a lot, but I'm excited.
But yeah, and you're going to get for the Guardians, you're going to get Bazzana and Churio, and who else am I missing?
Well, Angel Henao is going to play shortstop next to Bazzana. I don't think enough people know about Angel Henao. I'm a little leery about Henao's approach at the plate. It's a little aggressive. Mm-hmm. It scares me, but he can play short. There's some wrinkles to iron out as far as his like throwing accuracy and his like timing on throws. But he's got the shortstop arm. He's got the shortstop body. He's got the actions, the footwork. It's just the arm and surprisingly good power. He's grown a little bit. Hopefully he won't grow too much, but that could very well be in a couple of years Cleveland's keystone combo, and I would be very excited about that. I think Fangraphs actually had Henao over Bazzana as the Guardians' top prospect, so that's
really
it's going to be a fun offensive game. You got Bazzana, you got Henao. There's Ralphie Velasquez. There's CJ Kafis. Those guys actually have power, which is something Cleveland doesn't really know about. Cooper Ingle was awesome last year. So, yeah, they actually have more hitting than pitching, if you can believe that.
Yeah, that's, from the outside, we don't pay. We see a lot of these Guardians prospects, in the Midwest League and AA and AAA. But I don't pay super close attention. So from the outside, I kind of view Cleveland as this. They take these pitchers who don't necessarily have great stuff, but they have good feel for pitching, and then they make them throw better, throw harder, and then they also just have a never-ending army of middle infielders who get on base and hit, but don't have power. So that's my 10,000-foot view from the outside. But I'm curious if you can disabuse me of any of those notions.
No, that's 100% true. Yeah, your commenter is right. Yeah, out Michigan Zone, Alex Mooney. Love Alex Mooney. Great guy.
I think our commenter is Rogelio.
Is it right? Okay. Well, that makes sense. He's a future leader of some team. You might be a future manager, actually.
Yeah.
No, you're 100% right. I mean, the guys they're most successful with are the Tanner Bibees, the Shane Biebers, the guys who throw 90, 92 in college, and they help them do a little bit better in the pros. They do have some guys like that. Like Parker Messick's going to start the game for the Guardians. And he was a Florida State guy who was like, Cleveland loves them. I appreciate this as a Husky guy. I appreciate Cleveland's love for big bodied pitchers. They got Parker Messick, who is in better shape now than he was in college. And Matt Tugboat Wilkinson, who kind of took the minor leagues by storm last year, who is even bigger than Messick, but has also lost weight and is extremely deceptive. So those guys have both, kind of thrown in the high 80s, low 90s. Messick's velocity has ticked up over the last year or so. So he's like throwing like 92, 94. Good stuff. So Messick's going to start, and that's going to be followed by Austin Peterson. So Austin Peterson, to me, is like the sleeper prospect in the system as far as pitching goes. He's 25. So he's a little bit older, but 90, 92, can hit 94. We're talking like maybe not Shane Bieber level control, but like close enough. A very good changeup, like almost like a power changeup that's not a splitter, and a pretty good slider. So like he might be like a number 4, but he might be a good number 4. But if he adds like a tick or two of velo, we're talking a guy who could be even top of the rotation. Oh yeah, there's some Tugboat for you. Love that guy. He is one of the most quietly charismatic players I've ever come across. Like that guy, Tugboat, like he's not loud, he's not verbose, but he's very confident, and you can just tell that about him. He's got an aura about him. But yeah, like, they actually have better corner players. Like, yeah, Kafis, Ralphie Velasquez, Luis Morejo is a guy not a lot of people know about. Like, he's got power, he's a corner guy. And then, yeah, it's a bunch of soft tosses they're trying to add velocity to.
Yeah, it's a fun system. The Tigers finally have a really good farm system, and Cleveland won't stop having good farm systems. It's annoying. Go away. And it's beyond, moving to the big league level, of course, these are division rivals, met in the playoffs last year. You're kind of hoping that this can be kind of the start of like a golden era of Cleveland and Detroit fans really hating each other. But I don't know. We'll see what happens. What are your thoughts on Cleveland's offseason so far?
It could have been better. The hard part is I don't know how it could have been better. Like, for a team that was 3 wins, I know it seems like a lot, but they were 3 wins away from going to the World Series, and they beat the Yankees in 1 playoff game, and then they lost the 3 others. There were 2 more they were really close, and they could have won. You would like a team coming off that kind of season that was returning pretty much everybody to go out and have an off season where you add. That being said, like, they did the same thing in 2022. They won the division, and they had almost everybody coming back from 2022, and they went out and they added Mike Zunino and Josh Bell, and everyone thought, all right, they finally got power. They added a catcher, whatever, and then they fell on their face in 2023. So anything could happen. I don't love they traded Josh Naylor. Carlos Santana's trying to continue to beat Father Time, who is undefeated. If he does it for 1 more year, that's great. I think that's all they need. I think for me, it's they got to do something with the trade deadline to add a bat. They're hoping Chase Lauder can finally have his body healthy enough to play 100 games for the first time in his life. I don't know if Travis Bazzana is going to be up by the end of the year. I hope he is, but also that might be weird because that means nobody else took over second base. So, yeah, I would have liked them to have done more over the offseason, but the problem is, like, what would they have done? Because, like, what offensive impact players were out there they were going to sign. Like, they're not signing Juan Soto. They were interested in Gleyber Torres. He went to the Tigers. They weren't going to sign Bregman. So I'm like, no free agent hitters made sense for them. And they would have had to go through a trade route. And what teams were really selling over the offseason besides the White Sox? And all they traded was Garrett Crochet. So, like, I wanted them to do more over the offseason, but I'm also like, all right, what else could they have done offensively speaking? I think they added enough pitching, which is good.
Justin, I was a big fan of Gavin Williams at East Carolina. Thought he might hit the ground running a little more than he has. What does his presence this year mean to where that club is going?
He's having a great spring. He's having a fantastic spring. I mean, to be fair, he had a very similar spring a year ago until he got hurt. He was the guy in camp last year everyone thought of was going to have a breakout season, and then he had the elbow injury, and then he just never really recovered. So he's made some mechanical tweaks. One of my predictions for them this year is they need a fully healthy season from Gavin Williams. He's got to be their number 2 behind Tanner Bybee. He's got to be a clear number 2, and he's got to pitch 30 games. He has to. Because they're going to need to bide time until Shane Bieber comes back in the second half, and hopefully he's the Shane Bieber we know and love in Cleveland. But yeah, he is critically important to that. But he's having a great spring. A lot of guys have had good springs. That doesn't always mean they're going to have great regular seasons, but I'm cautiously optimistic on Gavin Williams this year, and he is extremely vital for this team.
Is he getting up near 95, 96, or is he more 94? Where is he at?
I mean, he's been 97 this spring. He okay. Early on, he was like 96, 98. Recently, he's kind of settled more into like the 95, 96 range. Mm-hmm. But the good news is when he is at a lower velocity, he's throwing a ton of strikes. So, like, it's not like he's all over the place. Last year, his big issue was he walked everybody, and his fastball was god-awful. Like, the velocity was not really an issue from a year ago, but everybody was hammering his fastball. And it had something to do with the shape and his mechanics. He's fixed that, I think it looks like. So, the velocity for him shouldn't be an issue. I think for him, it's fastball shape. I mean, he's getting 17, 20 inches of vertical break on that fastball. So if he continues that up, I'm not worried about the velocity. The velocity should be enough for him.
Cool.
And so the dastardly David Fry, he's on the IL, right?
Yeah, until about June-ish. And then when he comes back, he could only DH. So he can't even play in the field this year, which really limits Cleveland's roster, and it really limits David Fry's value to the team. I mean, obviously offensively as a DH, you saw what he did in the LDS, but this team was so good a year ago with David Fry because at first he was catching, he was playing first, he could play the outfield. That's super valuable, and they needed that against left-handed pitching. So I hope he'll be as good offensively as he was a year ago, but yeah, he can only DH when he comes back this year.
And that monster Lane Thomas.
Lane Thomas, who had like the only 2 big hits he had all season for Cleveland were, I think he had a hit in his first game, which happened to be against the Tigers after the trade deadline, and then it feels like he didn't hit again until the ALDS. But yeah, and that was like, unfortunately, the worst pitch of Tarek Skubal's season. Like Tarek Skubal had a great season for all like 180 days, and then he threw one bad pitch all year.
I made a bad joke on his Lock and Guardians. It was like Lane Thomas.
Yeah. No, it's tough. Last year for the Tigers fans, at least, and it may have been this for the Guardians fans too. It felt like they were just kind of playing with house money. Nobody expected the playoffs for the Tigers, so I guess maybe for the Guardians, you were just kind of in first place basically all year, and just kind of ran away with it at the end. But obviously the Tigers fans wanted them to keep winning, but it was like, we'll get them next time. And I feel like that's probably not going to be the case, but I don't know. That was a fun series, that's for sure. Like I remember 8 or 9 different things from that series, and the big one here was Kerry Carpenter getting to Emmanuel Class A. The fans here were going nuts, but maybe we'll have a rematch this year.
Hey, just a quick question: what do you see from Manzardo this year? What's the expectation?
I'm really curious to see what they're going to do with him in terms of platooning because, David Fry is not going to be back until June. Carlos Santana is probably going to be the everyday first baseman because he's better defensively, and that's just where he's been, and he likes to play every day. Hopefully, they'll consider DHing Santana just to save his legs a little bit because he is 39. Not that 39's old, but it's old in baseball years. I want to know whether or not they're going to play Manzardo against lefties. That's going to be a big tell, I think, early on. Last year, they platooned him and Fry heavily. He didn't play against almost any lefties. Preferably, if it were me, I would be letting Manzardo play every day, except for when you're facing, like, the Scoobles and the Garrett Crochets of the world. Those guys are tough. But I would let him face other lefties besides that and see what you can do, because you got to figure out if he's going to be the full-time guy or not, because they've got CJ Kafis, who should be in AAA this year. They got Ralphie Velasquez, who hopefully makes it to AA this year. So, like, they got to see if Manzardo is the guy long term, and that includes hitting lefties. He was better against lefties in AAA last year than he'd ever have been. I want to see if that carries over. So I think it's the thing to watch. If they don't play him every day, they have to find a platoon partner for him, and the only guy that might be that is John Kenzie Noel, who obviously had a great postseason, or at least one good postseason at bat, which was pretty good, but. I'm not necessarily the biggest Noel believer. I love John Kenzie Noel, the person, but I got to see less chase from him.
Yeah, I mean that was an epic moment for sure, and like in the call, those were great. But yeah, I was just looking earlier today. I was sharing this with Raj. We were kind of looking at some spring training Statcast data, which is very, very, very minimal at this point. But we're looking at Tyrell Lorenzo, and his bat speed and swing length are, so far in spring training, are right up there on like the top 5 of Major League Baseball, along with Stanton and Judge and Schwarber and John Kenzie Noel. And I'm like, oh, well, that's interesting. Guys who hit for a lot of power, maybe their swings are a little bit longer and faster, but I just found it interesting. And yeah, I don't really know what to expect from him going forward. I tend to agree with you. There's shades of the big fella from a couple years back came over from the Padres, and then now he's off. Yeah, Franmil Reyes. Yeah, there's some vaguely reminiscent of that to me, but
yeah, Franmil didn't chase quite as much out of the zone, but yeah, big man swing bat fast and hard, and ball goes a long way. If he makes pitchers throw the ball in the zone, they'll pay, but I think pitchers will figure it. We've already figured out very fast that John Kenzie Noel will swing at anything and everything, and he's got to get them back in the zone. Otherwise, yeah, if he does that, I mean, he's a 40 home run hitter, but I could also run a marathon, but I'm not going to.
We need more John Kenzie no K.
Yeah, that would be more like it. Yeah, wrong last name.
As far as one final, who are the 2 prospects in AA or AAA that could potentially make an impact this year? Because if we look at right now for the Tigers, I think it's more pitching than hitters at this moment, because their hitters are a couple of years away. I mean, Max Clark is going to be entering AA, Kevin McGonigal at some point. But you have Jackson Joe, but it's just going to be more of a, I think, pitching heavy impact. But for Cleveland, is there any 2 or 3 players? Is it pitching, or is there an impact bat that can come in and help out in the middle of the season?
I mean, the easy answer here is Travis Bazzana. Like, he should start the year in Akron, and they traded Andres Jimenez, and so far in spring training, neither Juan Brito or Gabriel Arias seems to want the job. It's more like someone has to get it by default. So if none of them take charge, then Bazzana could be hitting everything in sight and force their hand. Midseason might be a little bit tough. And Bazzana's role on this team this year is very, I think, heavily dependent on whether or not the Guardians are contending. Because if they get to August or even July and they're, maybe they're not in it. Like, maybe the offense is bad and second base is bad all year. If they're not in it, Travis Bazzana is not coming up this year, because they're not burning that service time on a year they're not contending. So this team has to be contending for him to come up and make the impact. And that might be challenging, because, like, I don't know how they can get to August in contention and get absolutely nothing from second base, where they're to the point where they have to call Bazzana up. So, like, that's a catch-22. The bullpen, like, I want to say the bullpen, like, there's some dudes in Akron who could help out. Like Zane Morehouse comes to mind. He's very Cade Smithian. But, like, the bullpen's so stacked. Like, I don't know how they could add to the bullpen. I mean, they already have some injuries, so that stinks. Double A is going to be tough. Like, I think this team's pretty set. You've got guys in AAA, like Chase DeLauder's got to get healthy and get on the field. I don't know if that's ever going to happen for him. They've got pitchers that can help out. Like Joey Cantillo was up last year. Doug Nikhazy just walked like the entire city of Glendale the other day in his last start. So, like, I want him to be good, but I still have concerns. He might be a bullpen guy at some point. Parker Messick probably starts the year in AA. Like I said, he's starting the future. I keep calling it the futures game, the spring breakout game. He starts the year in AA. I wouldn't be like totally surprised if he makes his debut this year. But also, if he makes his debut, like there's a lot of pitchers in front of him where I'm like, okay, what happened to them if Parker Messick is pitching in the majors this year? So this is a team with a lot of upper level depth. So there shouldn't be a lot of breakthroughs from that low in the system.
Yeah, I think Akron has a good chance of getting a playoff spot this year, at least clinching in the first half, and possibly making a run in the Eastern League as you're trying to knock off the Seawolves, who have won the last 2 titles. So, Justin, where can everybody find you? Of course, locked on with the great Jeff, who is, it's funny. It was just we're talking off the air, and it's just how many times there obscure Cleveland Tiger references were done in like 5 minutes between the 3 of us. Was I love doing that because like just we're just going back to childhood memories and stuff like that. But it was just pretty funny the amount of random crossover. But anyway, where can people find your work?
Yeah, we're all over the place at Locked On Guardians, YouTube, anywhere you get podcasts, Lock Guardians on Twitter. The official account doesn't have a Blue Sky account, but I've got one. I'm Jail Baseball over there. I'm jail_baseball on Twitter. So yeah, we're everywhere you can get podcasts, and we're free every day.
Yeah. And also,
don't forget, 5 days a week.
Don't forget to check out Substack too. If you're into prospects, some really good Substack is Next Year in Cleveland. Substack.com, and also they have a Discord too.
Ebook,
as well.
right?
Pardon me?
Do you have an ebook?
I do have an ebook out. I'm waiting for some fishes. Yeah, I did put a 90-page. I can't believe it was 90 pages. It's my top 50 Guardians prospects. It was top 43 plus 7 just missed. I did 2024 graduate reviews. I did some predictions. So yeah, I have an ebook out there if anybody's interested in the Guardians prospect handbook, an ebook form that's out there. Yeah, we have a Discord too. It's not entirely active. I've not been great at keeping the Discord going, but if you want to join, I'm certainly looking to make that a better community this year if I can do so.
Yeah, we can always help out each other out with that because there's our community's at 275 now, I think, or something like that. But we have a bunch of weirdos in there. No, in a good way. In a good way.
Heckle the Guardians fans.
Yeah, yeah.
Baseball weirdos are the best weirdos.
Yeah, but no, congratulations! I totally forgot about the ebook there. Thanks, Chris. That's pretty awesome. Like I mean, at one point it would be cool to have a book out there like that. But Justin, thanks so much for taking the time this evening. And check out all his work Next Year in Cleveland. Some great prospect stuff. 90 pages of for as much as we just slotted through our 46 prospects, there's Justin running in 90 pages. So salute yourself.
Always one step ahead, Cleveland.
I didn't set out to write 90 pages, but that's just what it came to. So my editors always said I needed to be more brief. I don't know. I don't have brevity in me when it comes to baseball, as you can see.
That's no problem at all, man. All right, man. Well, thanks again for stopping by. We appreciate it, man.
Yeah. Good seeing you.
Thanks.
Always fun talking to you guys. Can't wait to do it again.
All right, see ya. All right, so Justin joining us from talking some Cleveland Guardians baseball. As we're gonna have probably James Fox in from Sox Prospects or Future Sox, and at some point we're gonna probably I'm trying to get a hold of Crystal, but she's not on X anymore, Twitter, so I have to figure out another way.
I follow her on I follow her on Blue Sky. She follows me. I can reach out. That way.
Okay, all right, yeah, we have Crystal on.
Yeah, no, Justin and Jeff are good people. We always joke that there are Cleveland doppelgangers. They had us on for the draft last year, but it was like day 3 of the draft, and we were they went all in because Cleveland had the first overall pick, so they were spouting off. I like that guy in the 17th round. We're like, all right, okay, settle down, guys. But they're great. They're good dudes and really knowledgeable about baseball, and they just it's their fault that they grew up and rooting for Cleveland. But what can you do?
Yeah, someone had to.
Yeah, not to mention they have really good basketball. I mean, Cleveland's they have 2 15-game winning streaks in the NBA right now.
They have like three or like all of their win streaks are like the longest. They're like, nobody else has been close to. I don't know. The NBA has kind of eluded me lately. I don't know what makes teams good anymore. But yeah, they've got a heck of a basketball team there. So
Yeah, I mean,
Fun times in Cleveland again.
Yeah, fun times in Cleveland. Yeah, you know what? I do have that prop. Do I? Yeah.
I mean, being real, if I'm going to be in Ohio,
fun times in Cleveland again. Still Cleveland.
Yeah. Sorry, Mike. What were you saying?
Just if I want to be anywhere in Ohio, it's Cleveland. So
yeah. Cleveland's a cool town. I you know what? There's a lot. Cleveland's a really cool town. Honestly, it's a lot of people don't give it a lot of crap, but there's some parts of Cleveland like by Rocky River. There's some really good pizza places over there. And there's a couple of friends from my work that go down there and smoke cigars and all that stuff. So Cleveland's a cool town. I don't understand like just why, because you're from Michigan, you have to automatically hate Ohio, but whatever. It is what it is.
You just got to hate Columbus, I feel like, right?
Yes.
Well, yeah,
Columbus is acceptable.
That's the thing. Columbus is just just a chunky Ann Arbor, right? Like Cleveland, Detroit, Toledo, Erie, Buffalo. These are all the same city. These are all these Rust Belt, industrial communities, and that we shouldn't fight each other just because of silly imaginary boundaries. We're all of the same, same stuff.
Milwaukee's in there too.
Milwaukee for sure, yeah.
I heard downtown Milwaukee's got a pretty cool area.
Yeah.
Too.
Oh yeah,
Jared loves it.
Milwaukee's a good town.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was having a discussion with my buddy Rob about this, and I was like, Minneapolis is pretty cool. It's like Minneapolis and St. Louis are river towns. Yeah. I'm like, every city's a river city. Every city's on a river. Yes. And then I looked it up, and it's like, well, technically Denver isn't on a river.
Milwaukee's on a lake. So
yeah, there is a river that goes through Denver, but it's not big enough to be like, a boat river. And in Indianapolis, apparently, I don't know, whatever.
Is it? Is that the river?
There's a river just next to it. I don't know how big it is.
I don't remember. I know they have that big in the middle of the town. They have that big war memorial, World War II memorial, I believe it is. It's like just really massive thing in the middle of downtown, and they got St. Elmo's Fire Steakhouse, and that was kind of most. That was kind of.
There was a canal that went through Indianapolis when I was there last year.
I don't remember. I didn't see that part.
I don't have any cash on me, but there was like a dude in a gondola, and I wanted to pay him to serenade me and my friend while we rode a gondola together in downtown Indianapolis. But there's a river down there. It's all the same. I agree.
People when they're looking to build a city, they don't go, well, this is good. There's no water here. Let's we'll start here and we'll figure it out. Although I watched I don't know if you've been watching the I think it's the Americas on NBC. Mm-hmm. It's a nature show with Tom Hanks.
Yep.
They were. I don't know if they were.
Talking about the Great FX series with Matthew Ray.
Not the Americans. That's the Americas.
Yeah.
And the second episode was about Mexico, and they were talking about I think it was the Incas.
Yep.
And they had these cities they built that were nowhere near any fresh water, but they have these strange underground caves. It's like the largest freshwater underground caves in the world. It was really fascinating. Anyway,
cool. I saw that too. Yeah.
So let's end the podcast. Talk about some Torkelson here, who I think is gonna make. Have you guys talked about Torkelson? Because
no, we haven't talked Torque. We talked about Job and Maeda and Mize and Montero. That kind of end of the rotation. We talked a little bit about the end of the bullpen. We didn't talk about the offense. What the hell's going to happen with you? Got Torque, you got Malloy, you got John Mike Jones is still around. He's kind of on the outside looking in because he's not on the 40 man, but who knows?
Yeah, the roster I believe is at 39 right now, so they could add him theoretically. I think there is a world there's going to be where Malloy is going to make this roster because he saw some time in left field. He's not bad an outfielder, and Torque is hitting the ball pretty well. And though every time we post a Torkelson home run, I have noticed that people are like, "Oh, that's not out of the knock it off." Yeah. Like, come on. Give the guy a break already. Jeez,
well, that's one of people's favorite things to say. Oh, it's a routine fly ball in Comerica. And it's like, okay. All right, guys.
Yeah.
What if he wasn't at Comerica?
Yeah.
I would say the good news, if you want to take good news from Torkelson, and again, it's spring training, so whatever, stat-wise, but he's always been awful in the spring. and this spring, he's not awful. And
he's hitting home runs.
Does that mean anything? I don't know, but it's better than being awful again.
what concerns me is that you have to take spring training with a grain of to a certain extent. To a certain extent, you have to take spring training with a grain of salt. You have to take it as the stat. Like 4 home runs. That's 4 home runs he never hit in spring training at all. So that stat can go. Okay, you can hang that up there for that. There is a difference in his demeanor a little bit. Sure. I mean, if you want to imply that all those things, there's a lot of things you can apply from quotes. There's a lot of apply in behavior and all that stuff. That being said, it is worth noting that Torkelson, some of the more advanced stats show that he's hitting the ball better. So use that for what it's worth. And he's also, it's not like he's playing against scrubs lately. You're seeing the frontline starters. Yes. Is he hitting meatballs? Yes. That's the most important thing. Whereas you can look at and use the same logic for Jace Young, for example, who's not hitting high velocity and struggling against it. And that continues the MO from last year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It, like you said, it's not, spring training obviously isn't everything. And at times can be very, very misleading. But when you're a Torkelson or a Mize or a Matt Manning, your spring training performance means a lot. And we've seen what happened with Matt Manning. It was awful, and he's gone. He was banished to the minors right away. If Torque were 0 for 18 with 10 strikeouts, he'd probably already been optioned to AAA. So it's good. If nothing else, it's good to see him out there competing and trying to get a spot on the team. I don't know if there is one right now. You were asking me earlier today, is there a chance that we could see Malloy and Torque on the team? I think there is now, because if Perez continues to be injured, and it sure seems like unless Meadows makes a miraculous recovery and is in the lineup tomorrow or Saturday, I don't think he's going to start the season on the team. I think he's going to be on the injured list. And we haven't heard any updates on Vierling either. So it's just an odd confluence of like 3 of the possible 4 center fielders in the organization all got hurt at the same time. It's like, so Riley Green back in center. We got Malloy in left, Carpenter in right. You got Torkelson as your DH, and there you go.
And Baez at third, apparently.
Yeah, they're gonna stretch that position flexibility. That's what AJ Hinch is gonna do. That's just. I mean, we've seen Andrew Navigado play some out, in left field for the first time.
Yeah,
and
he hasn't been sent back to minor league camp yet.
Yeah. No. Yeah, he might have a chance to make this team. Like he seriously might have a chance to make this team.
I'd consider him a long shot, but like if he goes ham here in the last couple weeks, and the Baez thing, we touched on Baez playing third. We didn't talk about what that might mean for Young. I don't know. I think the thought right now is that maybe Young and Sweeney will be kind of your regular shortstop and third baseman, and Baez will play for one or the other occasionally. But I don't know. Like you said, Raj, like Young hasn't proven a lot this spring. I guess his defense does look a little bit better. He did hit a home run the other day, but I was very meanly pointing out that it was on a 90-mile-an-hour meatball right to the heart of the plate. It's like, well, that's great. You don't miss it, but that you're not going to get that pitch very often in the big leagues.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, this morning I was thinking about the outfield situation, and they are thin. There's no question. Would you guys agree that almost certainly, you should never say certainly, anything that happened, but they're going to try to fix this from within. They're going to try to live with it early with what they got on hand. And if they do make a move, it's not going to be anything major. I don't see a big trade coming with someone with a real contract. I would see somebody disposable, like a Ryan Valade type of guy, a Bly Madris type of guy, someone on that level. Maybe they'll do that. But even then, I would think, Jahmai Jones probably fits that bill.
Yeah. I think I've mentioned Jake Marisnick a couple times. He's with the Braves right now, I think. He may make the roster, but it seems unlikely. That's the guy you stash somebody on the 60-day, you get Marisnick for however long you need him, and then you get rid of him. And he's fine. That gives Riley Green a chance to not run into the wall in center field like he did today. But I don't know. It's you just kind of hope that suddenly everybody gets healthy, because everybody has injuries, but this is just kind of one of those, like, it's just annoying that it's all happening at the same spot basically.
So Toronto, by the way, does have a guy in camp that does play center field that I noticed the other day, who doesn't have much an option, and that was Miles Straw, who's a non-roster invitee. So he's a right-handed bat. He's 30 years old. I mean, he doesn't have much of an offensive profile, but he was in Houston. So put those two things together, and if he doesn't make the run, he doesn't have a choice, or excuse me, he doesn't have a spot in Toronto. Or Toronto, the Tigers could potentially sign him too. I'm not saying they're going to. I mean, but this is a guy who AJ Hinch is familiar with. And familiarity with AJ Hinch does go a long way. Case in point, with the signing of Jose
Urquidy.
Yeah.
Urquidy,
Yeah. So that goes along with that. So it goes hand in hand a little bit. So is Miles Straw a possibility? If he doesn't make the roster in Toronto, I don't know. You're right. I will say with you, they're going to probably look eternal for that option before they go out and spend anything. But one of the things I wanted to end the podcast with was Brendan Hennefee's change, the two-seamer. I don't know what the hell that was chef's kiss. That was like the best pitch I've seen all week. Just the dive action on that thing was just. I looked at. I had to replay it a couple times. I was doing this. I was working and I looked and I was watching again. When I started watching, I'm like, damn, where the hell is that coming from? It was just like, just like, and then I watched it again and again. And I just, that was one of those things that was like, keep that in the back of my pocket. I'm like, what the hell was this? Like, so that's a development that I wanted to point out because the Tigers didn't, I mean, if you're looking at relievers right now, a lot of them have gotten beat up, but in terms of Jason Foley, Will Vest, but Hannafy's swing miss stuff this week has looked pretty good.
The other day when he had that good outing, I was impressed too. I was looking at that and like, earlier tonight we mentioned Sean Gunther. I kind of equate Sean Gunther and Brendan Hannafy almost as one guy. They came up roughly at the same time last year, and they both played that really nice role down the stretch. Now we just talked about Gunther as maybe that's his best 6 weeks ever. I could see that soft toss lefty. I actually feel different about Hannafy. I think that he throws hard enough and he has enough of an array of pitches. There's something there that they could probably make a seventh inning guy out of. And if he continues to look like he looked the other day, he will be that guy.
Yeah. That's a great point. And we had our buddy Stan asked us a question about Tarek Skubal, but we'll get to that next week. We can do it today if you want to, but we can get it next week. It's maybe a longer thing. But somebody else earlier on asked us about who are 3 surprise players from this spring. I forget who it was. I'm sorry. And Hannafy was one of the ones I was going to pick because, I was right there with you. I felt like Hannafy and Gunther were we used to joke, like about Hannafy just being a dude that not a dude, just a guy, and now he's a dude. And like he feels almost like a replacement for Jason Foley or something like that. Like this monstrous sinker baller who's going to come in and get you outs when you need to. But yeah, he's still only 26. I think some places consider him a prospect still. And he's looked filthy this spring, which is a great sign. I think he's on the roster. I think he's made the bullpen. It just, the other, like, Mize has been a big shock to me. Honestly, I was not expecting this from him.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think anybody else who's really, Jahmai Jones has been a surprise. Tyler Owens was kind of a surprise by how well he performed, but it wasn't a ton. So I don't know if anybody pops out to you guys of the surprises so far in spring.
I don't know about surprise, but I'm happiest about Malloy, and I'm happy, that Torkelson has shown the pulse. Scott Harris said he has to have a good off season, and evidently he may have had one.
I would have to, in terms of like what I've seen, Casey Mize is number one with a bullet without question. Big surprise because I feel like he has just elevated himself into a solid third, top end starter. Like just some of his stuff. Again, I'm not trying to you can't all right, perspective. It's spring training, but he has really stood out because that splitter and that sliders looked really good. As far as I would put a prospect up there. Thomas Nato, in his short limited time out there, has made the most of it. He is a non-roster invitee. I'm not saying he's going to make the waves or anything, but he's made the most of his time. He's going to surprise me because when it comes to these journeyman catchers, it's usually it's the case of they're just in there, in and out, don't really notice him, but he has hit the ball pretty hard. Jones also comes to mind, but another person I would have to say on the prospect side of things, that I'm just glad to see out there is Dylan Smith.
Mm-hmm.
Just because we haven't seen Dylan Smith in a while for people like myself, the fact he was throwing out there and his secondary stuff looked pretty good in a small sample size. That to me was encouraging because
he's always been more of a rumor than a real thing.
Yeah, he's more like a myth than anything. And then to me, again, short sample size. It's just good to see him pitch, period, and good to see him healthy. So Dylan Smith to me is a surprise to me because I didn't think we'd see him honestly. I didn't think we'd see him at all because just like does Freddie Pacheco ever going to pitch for the Tigers? We don't know, but we did see. I mean, Dylan Smith has. It's just he disappeared in the middle of summer last summer, and we didn't see him again. It was just good to see him. So there we go.
I mean, you guys kind of snatched all of them away from me. I think Malloy and Nito were my two biggest surprises. Nito, just because we went into spring saying, "Oh, like Tigers are set a catcher. They're going to stick with Jake Rogers, and Dylan Dingler is going to be the dude that we're just going to let him struggle at the plate and." Get some catching behind the plate and just where it goes. And again, like Roger said, I'm not saying he's making the team, but the fact is there's another journeyman catcher that's pushing for a roster spot. And that wasn't something that I thought would happen at all this spring. So I do think it's worth, pointing out that Nito has, like Roger said, he's been hitting it real damn hard this spring.
Well, and along those lines, and Dylan Dingler has a pretty good spring, and he's hitting I feel like he's hitting to like 5 double plays, but he's not striking out a ton. He's hitting the ball hard. He's looked pretty good, so that's an encouraging development at least so far. But again, I don't think pitchers are game planning against anybody right now. The one other name I wanted to mention is Dietrich Enns, who I assumed that they were bringing him in to be another one of these guys competing for that lefty relief role, but it sure looks like they're stretching him out to start in Toledo, which will be interesting because this is, maybe this year's Hannafy and Gunther, or somebody who comes up later, and or maybe a Brian Sammons, right? If something goes crazy, you got Dietrich Enns coming up and pitching key innings for you down the stretch. So he's been a fun story. Of course, with these minor league free agents, it could be that we think he's gonna be a key member of Toledo, and then in like 2 weeks he's off back to Korea or Japan, or they release him and he goes to another team. So we'll see what happens there. But I don't know. I've also been encouraged by the approaches of the top 4 prospects in the system, the hitters.
Yeah.
McGonigal, Clark, Briseño, Lorenzo. They've all been very mature approaches. I think the tendency for young hitters like that in spring training is to really go up there and try to do something, try to make something happen, not stay within yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that got to Hao Yuli a little bit. He's been swinging at everything. But these guys are they're happy to take their walks, to work their bats, and it's been impressive. So that's been fun to watch. And spring breakouts on Thursday or Sunday. Yep.
We'll be live streaming that starting at 4:00 game time. So come hang out with us, watch the game, shoot the breeze with us, what have you. And it'll be. I'm not sure who's on the call for that. I think it's MLB person.
Yeah, it's in Atlanta, or not Atlanta. It's in Northport.
Okay.
So where Atlanta plays, which means I don't think there's StatCast there, which is annoying. But but whatever. So whoever announces, I'm sure.
Maybe it'll be those 2 guys that were saying supper the other day. I forgot the
the Atlanta radio guys.
Yeah, the radio guys from Atlanta who were saying, it was just funny because I haven't heard the word supper since my priest since high school, but it was like, oh, we're going to get supper later. It's like supper.
It's a regional thing.
Yeah, it is a regional thing. Definitely. So if you want to, please sign up. Or I will say this has been a crazy busy week for me, but there has been some content on our Patreon. So go to our patreon.com, our Patreon Tigers minor league report. Sign up, get some paid stuff. There's also some free stuff as well. There's our GoFundMe too, as we are going to be splitting duties when come opening day, and that's when we get closer. I'll be in Detroit. Chris could possibly be in Erie for opening day. Ashley might be down in West Michigan. Who knows? We're going to be all over the place come spring or come opening day, and just about 2 weeks away. So it's crazy. The baseball is just around the corner. and the weather is warming up finally. There's a full moon tonight.
Lunar eclipse tonight.
Lunar eclipse. So there's a lunar eclipse tonight.
You go out there and you don't see the moon.
Yeah.
I don't know. I still don't understand the lunar eclipse. I know what it is. I don't get it.
It seems like it's self-explanatory, but it's not, is it?
I when I was a kid, my dad was super excited about a lunar eclipse, and he took his camera outside and left the shutter open for 4 hours or whatever you have to do in the 80s. And I was like, all right, well, have fun. I'm gonna go play bases loaded.
Big gulps. All right.
Yeah.
Well, and I forgot. You know what? I'm gonna play this because it was by request earlier.
I think he's gonna be just fine.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As Chris said, standout. That question about Tarek Skubal was very in depth and was a great question. And next week, we probably should give that one the full treatment.
No, we will give him the full treatment. I just don't want to half-ass it because
I hear you. But I'm just saying he really helped. I thought that was one of the better questions a listener has sent us. It was pretty good. So we got to get into it.
And Ashley is in Arizona at the Sabre conference. She'll be back with us next week. She'll be with us probably going forward. But yeah, she's on. I got a chance to talk to her the other day, and she's been really like absorbing everything over there. But she had to do a presentation, I believe, out there. But yeah, she's out in Arizona doing this Sabre conference. Shout out to her. But she will be one of our prospect writers this year. So she's be interning with us from the University of Oakland, our first non-U of M Dearborn student. So it's actually kind of cool from my perspective because I'm pretty excited. She's honestly it is really cool. You can talk pitching with anybody, but it's cool that she's part of the group chat now in our Twitter. So she goes back and forth and stuff like that. So it's really cool. Not often that happens. And, not just because like the dip, like it just, I don't know. Like, I feel like, it's just cool. I don't know. She's a fan of the show. She was a fan of the show. She actually listened to the show. And when I reached out to her to have her on, she was like, I've listened to you guys. And I thought she was just, blowing smoke up my ass. And she wasn't. So, it's cool. That's all.
Speaking of which, I just read something about that. That used to be an actual medical treatment.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Didn't they? Isn't that was one of the ways they used to try to bring you back from drowning?
Yeah, I think so.
Smoke up your ass.
Yeah.
That's why on the sides of the river, there's like scenes of like having those bellows in the side, like on the side of the river, and it's for that specifically. And it would usually be tobacco. It'd be tobacco smoke.
Yeah, patients were also given rectal infusions of tobacco smoke as a respiratory stimulant.
This win for your team.
That was the best dump of my career.
Yeah. Tobacco smoke enema. Look it up. God. All these, all these sayings, they have something. There's some basis for them.
Man, a fellow sicko. Yeah. Wow. All right. Yeah, I learn something new every day. Hey, that is correct. All right. We're gonna have to end. Yeah. On that note, thanks everybody for watching this evening. Stay classy, everybody. And we'll talk to you for some people, for the Motor City Metric side of things. We'll talk to you next week. It could probably be a Tiger Mining Report podcast here sometime in the next few days. And we'll talk to you soon. Be careful with the smoke.